Hello all, welcome back to Learning Partner. If you are new, please do subscribe. This is another channel where you can directly connect with me. We have around 1000 plus members already who are working. We take live coding sessions and everything. To just get notified about those sessions, please do join this group and check out this website also where you can find so many project ideas with live version, proper flow, diagram and APIs and documentation and all. Now let's start with the video. Don't worry, I'm recording, okay? Now, so when we talk about NgRx, so NgRx is like the external library which allows us to manage the state, means to have a common state across all your application. Consider like you have a school application, okay? Let's say you have a school application. Inside the school app, some master in every project, we will have some master API, correct? Like let's say city, state, district, or subject, or some drop down data which is coming from API. Okay, so this kind of data is not going to change over the time, at least, correct? It's not going to change every day. So let's say we have what we can say employee registration page, or then teacher registration page is there, then student registration page is there, or student attendance is there, whatever. Let's say in all three different pages, we are going to need in employee, teacher, and student, we are going to need city, state, and the district API. The district data means city list, the state list, district list, and the or subject also. In teacher, we will be needing subject like this teacher who, what is his favorite subject or something like that. So let's say first user land on to the employee page. This all these API call we have done and we have got the data. Okay, an employee form is created. Then let's say we navigate to the teacher page and we try to create one new record. Again, in the teacher page, we are going to need these three data. We will get it from the API. But so see, this is like in previous page, we have already got the data. But again, in the teacher page, we are going to need this data. Again, we normally make the API call, correct? Let's say again goes to student. Again, we need this master kind of data. Again, we make the API call. This is kind of a repeated unnecessary use of the resource because we are using the API server for that time. We are keeping that server busy. Same data we are going to get. So alternative solution is to this, not talking about RX, just forget about RX just for now, NgRx for now. If you don't know NgRx, how you will manage it? Anyone? We don't want this API call to be done again and again. How we can manage it without using NgRx?
Service.
Yeah, we can store the data in the service. That is one way solution. Anyone else? How we can avoid those multiple duplicate API call?
Local storage.
Right? Local storage. Okay. So local storage, session storage, cookies, whatever you say, because once we call the API out of this, let's say city, state, district, once we call it this API from any page, we will store that data, whatever we get, into our browser, whether it is in the service file or local storage, session storage, or cookies. Next time, let's say we first landed to the employee page and we got the data and we store it in the local storage. Then we navigate to the teacher page. Here we will check like if we already have the data in the local storage. If yes, we will read the data from the local storage. We won't make the API call. Okay. So we reduce that API call because we already have the data and that data is kind of like it is not going to change over the time. So unnecessary, we are not making the API call. Okay. But or service anywhere. But what is the disadvantage over this? What can be the disadvantage? Storing data over here.
It is exposed.
Yeah, obviously it will expose. In service, yeah, in service it won't be exposed, but still, apart from that exposure, what
When
other
the new city or district comes, that time it won't change.
correct? Because how we will know like city or state data got changed? Then again we can write a logic. Let's say after every login. Okay. Let's say a normal application, when user login, we get a session also, right? If JWT authentication is there, let's say that token will be valid for 40 or 50 minutes, whatever. So after every login, first time we will remove the data, whatever we are storing, we will remove it after logout. So after every login, we will call the latest data. So in that scenario, at least we will be sure like, yes, recent data, I have it once I log in, because this data is not going to change over in every day. It is not going to change, correct? City, state, district, subject, it is not going to change. But there might be a scenario like sometimes data might be get changed. So we can add a restriction like every login, we will get we will remove the old data and we will get the new data. This kind of scenario we handle. Now, this before NgRx also, this were working fine, and after NgRx also, in so many projects, this is the same concept we are using. In some concept, rather than going for the local storage or SS storage, they will use cache service. Again, it's like a service only, storing the data in the service. If you refresh, that data is going to vanish. Again, we need to call the data. Okay. Or cookie also, same thing. So even though NgRx, see, when many projects start now, the person who is going to set up the architecture of the project, he will try to force you to use the NgRx. He will set up it also, but to use NgRx, and because it's very limited scenario, the scenario is like wherever we are using the data, multiple time of redundant data we are calling every time, right? In that scenario, we can go for this state management. Okay. Apart from that, let's say user logged in, and we need to store the logged in user data also. In that scenario also, we can store the data in NgRx. Normally we use session storage, local storage, or cookie also. So whatever we used to do with 3 medium, we can do with NgRx also. Instead of NgRx, whatever NgRx does, same thing we can do with RxJS also. Whatever we used to do over here in local storage, in service or cache service, same thing we can do with RxJS also. How we can do that? Anyone? How we can manage state using RxJS?
Subject behavior,
Right?
replace subject.
So we can create a subject behavior, and once we get the data, we will store that. And wherever we need that data, we will subscribe to that behavior. Correct? Same thing like that.
We can use replay subject also, right? That replay, that will be a buffer, right? Replay subject.
Yeah, replay is also there. But again, it's RxJS only. Correct?
Yes,
Right?
yes. Okay.
Again, replay with we have to provide the counter, like how much time we have to keep that data. But behavior subject is the versatile solution for that. We can store the data in behavior subject, and in application, whole or application, wherever we need that data, we can subscribe to that. But there might be some scenario like it might get failed, or architecture wise it is not good. So we have to go for the NgRx. In my last 3 projects, I have seen when the project start, NgRx will be there. In initial days, you will use that NgRx also, but once application and actual functionality will grow na, you won't use that, because it's a unnecessary headache. We have to store all the data, even though we are using it multiple times or not, we have to store it. So sometimes functionality is the prime, or whatever focus should be on the functionality, because we work on the agile, right? So sometimes in the starting of the project, we focused on NgRx too much, but once the project move ahead, we try to forget it, because it's developer extra work. We have to store everything in the store. But for the interview purpose, we should know NgRx, basic thing like how NgRx implementation is done, in what scenario you have to go for NgRx. So first, like in interview, they will ask you like in what kind of a project is there where NgRx will be actually used. So just mention this kind of scenario where we have a similar type of data which is going to be used over multiple pages. So we can store that kind of data in the store. Okay, if in every page we will check like if the store has that data, we will use it from the store. Otherwise, we will make the API call and again we will store it to the store only. So that duplicate API, unnecessary API call, we will reduce. Okay, that is what we call as a state management. Now, so when we talk about the store, so NgRx, let's just go to the website. So this is their official website. We have some image over here. Let's see. So this is the image. So see, whatever they have specified, or I will try to explain, then we will start the coding. So first, let's say we will have a store. Store is like a global medium, global something where we are going to store the data. Okay, that we will call as the store. Then we will have a actions. Okay, action. So action is like, let's say in your application, you are going to store, let me just remove city list and state list. Okay, let's say we are going to store this kind of data. So in city list, what kind of actions we have, or with city list, what operations we can perform? Add, update, delete, get something, right? So actions are nothing but what type of operation you are going to perform on this state. Those are nothing but action. So in action, we just specify like what operation, what type of operation, or what kind of action, just what in the normal English, what we use action for, that thing. Operation, what type of operation we are going to perform with the state city list. Just like in state list, let's say we are not going to do the add action, just the get action is there. So means just the store. Okay. So in action, we will store the action, like what type of operation we are going to, various operation we can perform on the data stored in the state. That is nothing but action. Then reducer. So first action will be there. Then after action, it will go to the reducer. So whatever the action we have created, in reducer, we have to implement the logic for the respective action. Let's say, so in city list, let's say we have added two action, add and read. Okay. So in reducer, these are what we called as action. Now in reducer, we will create functions which will handle above action. That is add and read. Okay. So what number of action you provide in the reducer, we have to create a function which will handle those operations. Means in reducer, we will have the actual functions which will be doing the operations. Here we will just specify like what type of, how many actions, how many operations we are going to perform. That's it. Okay. So once reducer is there, it will go to the store. So first action will be there. Let's say add action, it will go to the reducer. Reducer will have a logic for the add. Then it will go to the store and it will store the data. Then we will have the selector. So in component, let's say from this component, add first, like every action will be triggered from the component only, right? So let's say we are in the first page. Let's say employee page. We are in the employee page. We'll on the page, on the landing of the page, we call get API. We get the data. That data we will store by using the action method add to the store. So what it will does, let's say this is our employee component, get API call is done. We got the data. That data we have, we are saying like just store this data into my store. So we will use the add action. Then this add action will go to the reducer. Reducer will actually store the data into the store. Okay. Then data is stored. Then let's say we navigate to the teacher page. In teacher page, again, we need the data we have stored into the store. So now we won't make the API call. So we will get the data from the store by using selector. So selector is like how we subscribe in RxJS. Let's say we created a behavior subject or subject, and how we read the data by subscribing to that. So just like that, we have to create the selector. So selector as like we can get, it's a way to get the data, to read the data, to fetch the data from the store selector. And our state will be this. Here we will actually store the data. So from action, reducer, then it will go to store. And from store, we can read the data by selector. Clear, everyone? So this is the normal flow. From your component, you will store the data to the store with the help of action. Action will then, whatever the action you call, then that particular function from the reducer will execute, which will store the data to the store. And again, let's say if in another any component you need to read the data, you will read the data by using selector. For now, don't just remember this effect. Okay, just this is the basic. Then we have some advanced concept with effect and everything. So we will discuss that later. So first, is this clear? The basic flow, how flow is going to be there.
Sir, where we can call the actual API in a reducer or like action?
Where we call the API. No, API call will be in our service only, normal Angular app. API call
Okay.
we won't write in the reducer. Reducer is just to whatever the data you pass to the reducer, it will store the data to the store. We won't make our API call. API call in everything, whatever we know in the component or in the service, whatever you used to do normally, you will write your application like that. But when it comes to store the data, once you get the data from the API, then store will come into the picture. It's not like in the store only we will make the API call.
So
Clear?
in somewhere we have to call that API in particular component, right?
Yeah. Wherever in component or in a service, wherever you normally call the API, there you will call it. And in the component, let's say you are subscribing, there you can store it to the store. Got it? Clear?
Sir, yeah,
Yeah.
reducer we can assume like a middle person in between
Middle,
the store and
middle
action,
person between store and the action.
like
With
the
action,
interceptor.
yeah, interceptor. With action, you will specify what type of action you need to perform. Reducer will, while calling the reducer, you will specify the action. So based on the action, reducer will execute that particular action function, and then it will perform the operation, whatever we have written in the reducer.
Okay.
Clear? Fine.
Yeah.
So let's start with the implementation now. So basic Angular 18 project is there, but this project I have created with the older way with app module. Okay, because with new structure, I was not sure like how we implement it. Okay, because I needed to have the app module, but without app module also we can do, because in share module with in latest NgRx version, we don't have to register the module anywhere. So might be possible, but I will again try with new version also. But same thing, whatever apart from the app module now, where we add the module, NgRx module, where we need to add it, store module, that part only will be different, but remaining implementation is same. Okay. Whether it is Angular 6, 5, I mean, from I think 7, 8, 9, 10, everything is same. Whatever the code we are going to see, it will be same. Okay. Now, so first package you need to install. Let me just get the steps. Around major 7 steps are there. We will just try the basic counter application. Let me just open it. GRX steps. Okay. So first, I have created the empty project. After that, I have installed this NgRx. So we have to install the NgRx by using ngadd, and this is the package over NgRx store and whatever the latest we have. Okay. So latest is 18.0.1. I think recently they have released once Angular 18 was released. Okay. Because previously it was something else, but now recent version is something else. Okay. So first thing, you need to install the package. Once you install the package, then you can start the implementation. Now in the app folder, I have created a folder that is store. Now inside this store folder, we are going to create our action, reducer, selector, and the store, everything. Now, what I said, like first thing, we have to create the action. So let's create the action now. So we are going to create counter application. We are just going to store the counter by using in store, we are going to store the counter. So let's say counter dot action dot ts. Okay. So first file I have created, that is for action. Counter.action.create. Now here we have to create the action. As I said, like let's say we are trying to create our application where we will have a counter, and that counter we are going to change from multiple application, but that whatever the current count will be available across all application, overall application. Okay. So we are trying to create a counter. We are going to store a counter in a store that will be available throughout the application. And from any page, we can change that counter. That counter state will be single instance. Okay. Now, what we can do with the counter? Either we can increment it, decrement it, or we can reset it also. Correct? So like that, these are nothing but operation. So first we have to create the count actions. So that will be export const increment counter is equal to, what do we write? Create action. Create action. So this will come from NgRx only, and just the something name we have to provide. Let's say counter incremented. Okay. So this is the first action. Create action, counter incremented. Okay. Then we have to create the second action. Export const decrement counter is equal to again create action. Okay. So we have created two action, increment counter and decrement counter. This is just a information, just like console.log. It doesn't have to do anything. This is your action name, increment counter and decrement counter. Okay. So we have created counter.action.ts. So as I said, like in action, what we will do, we will specify like what kind of operation we are going to do on the state, which we are going to store in the store. Okay. So two types of operation, increment counter and decrement counter. Action is done. Okay. Next thing, once we create the action, next we have to create the reducer. Now let's create the reducer. So in store folder only, counter dot reducer dot ts. Okay. Now here we have to implement the functions which are going to implement increment counter and decrement counter functions, actions. Okay. How do we do that? So we have created this. Now here we have to create just an interface, like what type of data I'm going to store into my store. So for that, I'm creating an interface. So first export interface. What is the name I'm giving? Counter state. State count colon number. Don't use this tool, please. How do we get rid of this now? Let me stop and share it again. Don't use any tool, please. Okay, so after action creation, we have created our reducer. In reducer, I have just created an interface with what I'm going to store, just the count, and it will have a data type number. Okay. Then we have to create an initial state. Like we said, like in the store, we are going to store the count, but that count from which it will start. So we will initialize like from 0 or 1, whatever. So we have to create another constant, export const initial count with data type counter state, whatever the interface we have created, what we have count colon 0. Okay. So we have just created a constant with initial state 0. Okay. This is just a basic means instead of providing it any, because everywhere we should get that IntelliSense. That's why that's why I have created this interface. Otherwise we can go with any also, but again, that count won't come. If we make the spelling mistake, we won't get the proper data, right? So for that, I have created the interface. So interface is created. Then we have created a counter state initial value. Then we have to create the reducer. So see, reducer is like this. So export const reducer is equal to create reducer round bracket. So while creating reducer, first we need to provide the initial state. So this constant we will provide it over here, comma. Then what many actions we have? Two actions, increment counter and decrement counter. So that we need to implement now by using on method. Okay. So this is also see on is also from NgRx store. On means if this action got triggered on. Okay. So here now we need to specify the action. So first action is our increment counter. So I'm copying this. We have to provide it over here. Let's add the import of that action we have created. Comma. What is the syntax? Yeah. Then state arrow function and then round bracket, curly bracket. Now I'm going to use the spread operator. So spread operator, how do we use it? Dot, 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 state means whatever the current value, whatever the current state is, we are fetching that by using spread operator, comma. From that state, which value we are going to increase, because in the store, we are going to have multiple. We are not going to store only one count. We are going to store count, then get API, again logged in user data. So many things we are going to have. But what you are going to change in this reducer? So we are going to change the count, colon. Now, here we are going to get the existing data in that store. Existing state data we are going to get over here. From that state, what you are going to change? Count. And that count will be state dot, see, it is suggesting now. If we don't create this interface, it won't suggest, and you won't feel like what you need to provide it over here. Because once you implement the NgRx in actual project, there will be so many things you will be storing, right? So if you don't create the interface, you won't get the property value properly. Okay, count is equal to or +1, we can directly do it. Okay, so see, on this action, what we are going to do, we are from this state, we are going to update the counter value with what? Existing value +1. This is with, this is for increment counter, comma. Then second, on. I said like in the initial, like reducer is responsible to write the logic. So this is the logic. Because this is just a counter, so we are just incrementing it. In case of array, we will add a new element or replace the whole array. Okay. Now here we have to get the second count action is like decrement counter. Whatever the action name you have created over here, that we are passing it over here. Comma state arrow function round bracket curly bracket dot state, comma. Again we are going to increment the count with what? State dot count -1. Correct. Okay. So see, we have created our reducer. So in reducer, we have passed the initial state. Like this is the initial state you have to use. Then any of the action from, let's say, component, we call this action increment counter. So what it is going to do from this state, it is going to increment the count with whatever existing count +1, and in decrement counter -1. Fine. So we have created our reducer. First, we have created our action, then our reducer. Then we have to create our state, means our store. So let's create the state. So app.state.ts. Now here, this is the file, actual file where we are going to create our store. So that will be just the normal interface, but we just need to provide the interface, what we have created over here, counter state, same. Let's add the import. So this is your store. Let's say you are going to store the count, logged user data, colon any something, city list, any of array, like this. So what number of various data you are going to store in your store, that many properties you will create it over here. Okay. So currently we are just dealing with this counter. So I will keep it like this. So this is my store. In my store, only only counter I'm going to store. So that's why I have the counter. Okay. This is the fifth step. First package installation, then we have created action, reducer, and then state. Now, next thing is we have to create the selector. So from our diagram, we have created action, we have created reducer also, we have created our store also. Then to read the data from the store, we are going to need the selector. So let's create the selector now. So in the store folder, counter dot selector dot ts. How is the selector? Export cost. Let me just write it. Export cost. What is the name we have given? Select counter state. Counter state is equal to state. We will provide the data type of that state, and from that we need the counter. Data type, whatever the counter state, this interface we have created. So this we have to pass it over here. We need the import And from that, what we are going to need, state dot see, now counter is coming. So this is select counter state. So by using this method, we are going to get the from state, we are going to get the counter. Okay, let's say if you have logged user data, let's just keep it also. Now, if you need to read the data from the, if you need the logged in user data, so you will be creating export const select logged user data is equal to state, which state, app state. From your state, what you are going to use, so state dot logged user data. So what number of data you are going to store in your store, like that selector will be there. Fine. Currently we are not storing, we are not going to store the user data, but let it be like that. Let's say in our store we are going to store two properties, counter and the logged user data. So in selector we have created this two selectors. Okay, that is done. Now in app component, so we have created the basic file, action we have created, reducer we have created, selectors also we have created, and state also we have created. Now in app module we have to combine it, how it is going to behave as a single file. These are four nothing but different files which has some interlinking, but how it is going to behave or how it is connected with the actual store, NgRx store. So that thing we have to do in our app module. Okay, so now in app module in the provider section, one more thing we need it over here. Let me try to undo. Okay, let's try, then we will see. In import, we have to add that something. We will try it once we face the error. So now over here in provider, first we have to add the provider provide store. Okay, so provide store, comma. Then we need to provide our state also, like what is the store name which we have created. Our store name is app.state. So that we need to register like provide state and the object. Let's add the import. So see, provide state. So in name, we are providing the counter. So counter is like how many, currently we are just storing the one, we are just going to do the operation for the counter. So that is what we are providing. And the reducer of it. Okay. So what is our reducer? That is counter reducer. Why it's not suggesting counter reducer name we have given. Okay, so see, for every data we are going to store in the store, we are going to have a separate reducer, right? So let's say we have created for reducer per counter, just like that. If we are going to store the user, so we will have logged user data action, logged user dot reducer. Got it? Selector will be only one, because in single selector you can create multiple selector, but action and the reducer you should have a separate. Okay. Now, so in the app module we have stored, we have registered our store also. Then what number of state we are going to have? Currently we are just dealing with the counter. Okay. Now, so basic thing is done. Now we have to use the whatever the store we have set up. Now we have to interact with it. Okay. So in app component, HTML.
Module file is not stored, saved.
Yeah, module in app component, no?
Yes, module app.module. Yes.
Yeah. No, here also we will face one issue. Let it be first, then we will check like what we need to add it. So let's Google it, NgRx.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I have one question. In app module, if
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is that
Need to add.
name, is that constant, like constant, or like we have to change?
Which? This, whatever the name you have provided over here. Where is our state?
In app module, yes.
Yeah. This, whatever the state name you have now, you will provide it over here. This is one, right? So let's say we are going to deal with our logged user also. So name, colon, in app state, logged user data will go over here. And currently we didn't created any reducer for the logged user data. So if we have created, we will pass that over here. Got it? So what number of data you are going to
Okay.
store in your state, like that you will keep on adding over here. It's like
Okay.
bringing everything over
Understood.
here. It's like registering your store. Okay. Let me just.
Yes.
How do we add it? We need a module now. Once we implement installation, they have not specified what we need to add. Like this. For root, let's add it. We will keep it as empty only. Okay, so once you directly install the package, now this will be automatically added. Okay, you don't need to manually add it. Fine. There are so many things which you can do it over here also, but for basic implementation, we are not going to touch that for now. So this shared in import statement, you need to add this also, because we are going to use the module from our NgRx. So obviously we need to use the module. Okay. Now, let me just close everything. Now in the app component, let's create a table tr td. Okay. Now in the first td, we are going to display the counter state. So in .ts, we need the counter. So counter, we are going to create an observable colon observable. What type of data you are going to get in the count? Number only. So that's why I will be specifying number. New observable number. We will create the constructor. Now in constructor, this dot counter is equal to. Now we need to create the instance of our store. Okay. Then from store, by using selector, we will try to select the counter. Okay. Where it is, yeah, like this. So see, it's like creating an instance of that store only, but we need to provide the store, because in your application you can have multiple store. Okay, so in single application you will have multiple store also. Based on the different module, you can create your store also. So while creating instance of your store, you need to specify which store you are talking about. Okay, let's just first add the import of store, then our store name, that is app state. So let's get the import of that, this. Okay, so now here store dot select, how do we write it? Select count. Wait, in the selector, what we write? Select counter state. Okay, so this is our selector to read the counters. Okay, so now this we have to pass it over here. Obviously we are going to use it, so we need to import it. What it is saying? Counter state is not assignable to. Why it is saying counter state? State dot counter we are returning.
I think we have to use the type as counter.
Store dot select. No. This dot store dot select, and we are passing our select. Somewhere we might have done the mistake then. Select count. So select count was, where is our select count? No, select count. What is the select count? Yeah, select count. Okay, so second variable, we missed it. So this is like we have got the store. I missed one steps. So in step 6, you can see while explaining that logged in user, I forgot that. So in selector, by writing this line, what we have done, we have just created an instance of our store. Okay. Now from that, we need to get the particular store. So this is the line for that. Let's remove this for now. Okay. So because we didn't create the create selector or anything, we have just created an instance of our store. Okay. So create selector we need. Fine. So see, here we are going to create the actual selector name. So that is select count. So create selector. So this is the method. Like you can see in action also we have used create action to create reducer to create. Now we are going to create the selector. So create selector. Now what for create for select for creating selector, what you need to pass your count, your state. So that is why I had created this. Let me just write it also. Create or get store instance. Okay, so here what we have done, we have just got the instance of the store, then that we have passed it over here, and from that we are going to use the count. So here you can see state dot the count actual variable which we are going to store it over here. Counter is our variable, right? But what is the data we are going to have inside that? Count. Okay, so this is the selector for that. Okay, now this our selector, that is select count, we have to pass in our app component, then it will work fine. We need to import it. Okay, now it's an observable, so we can subscribe to it in directly HTML by using async pipe. You can directly subscribe also, and you can pass it also. That is also fine. Fine. Let's just save and see if we are able to get the 0. By default, it is 0. So yeah, 0 is there. Now in first TD, we will create a button, increment, and over here we will have decrement. Okay. Now on click of it, on increment, just like that, over here on decrement. Let's create this function. Now, so how do we read the data from the store? We have created our selector, and by using this selector, we can subscribe to that value stored in the selector. So this dot store and select, and to select, we need to pass our selector name, select count. That is what we have created over here. Fine. Now we need to add the, or we have two actions only, increment and the decrement. So now we need to call those action to perform, to increment our counter and to decrement our counter. Okay, so in increment, so this dot store dot dispatch method we have to use. So dispatch is like we are dispatching action. With dispatch we need to pass the action, like what action you need to perform. See, it is it require action. Let's get our action name, increment counter. So we have to add it over here. Let's add the import. What is it? Counter is not assignable to the parameter of counter incremented. Action counter incremented is not assignable to the parameter of action counter incremented. Function are not to be dispatched. Did we do something wrong? Okay, as a method. So we are actually executing this function. So where is our action? So see, this is nothing but a function. So we are executing this function from our function, from our app component. But it's like this function, increment counter function is in another file. From this app component, we are executing that function, but we cannot directly do that. So we are dispatching the execution of that function like this. Okay. And in decrement, we will pass our decrement counter. Okay. Now let's just save and check. So now if we click on increment, so see, value is getting incremented, and it is, because we have written the async. So that's why it is always fetching the latest value, store value, and it is displaying. Right. Now let's try to create one more component, just so that you won't get confused, like in the same component we are doing it. Let's create one more component, NgGenerate component user. And this user component, we will load it over here. And from user component also, we will try to update the value. Private store colon store our store name, that is app state. Fine. In the user component also we will have one button. Increment from user. Let's create a click event. Okay. Now we will create this function over here. So this dot store dot dispatch increment counter, we will execute it. Okay. Now see why it's not visible. Fine. So now this button is from our user component. If I click from over here, see value is getting changed. From here also value is getting changed. Getting it? So if you, let's say now you have something value which is stored in a your global store, and from any component you can just create an instance of that store and you can update the counter by using that action. Got it? So this is the very basic implementation. It's not like just to clear the NgRx, like how it works, what things we need to create. Okay. Clear, everyone?
Cheta, here, like in the reducer only, we have to write the logic, like what operation should perform.
Yes,
Reducer file only.
here only in on method, in on and what action you will actually write your functions over here. Like let's say if you have an array, so
Mhm.
existing data, then you will pass new array. With spread operator only we do that, right?
Yes.
Right? So just like that.
Yes.
So reducer will have the actual logic to what you are going to do with your store. Action are just nothing but what type of operation you are going to perform. Got it?
Yeah, from reducer, you just to store in that store file, and then we just pass the component through selector
Yes,
to get the like
to
that.
get the data.
Sir, for
Yeah.
this example, we can, we can use throw the subjects on, sir. I mean,
Yeah, so see,
for
whatever
this
you
example.
can do, whatever you can do by RxJS, same thing we are doing using NgRx also. Let's say if you don't want to use the what do we say, NgRx, same thing by creating just a single behavior subject, we would have done it. But just to manage that, see how many code we have to write using NgRx. So same thing we could do with subject behavior also, and that is very easy also.
Then what makes the difference between them?
Yeah, so that's the initially I told you, right? So
Yeah,
it's like
for the APIs, we can
no,
go
see,
for
see, see,
smooth.
no. Don't get it like that. It's like storing common type of data. When you will go for the NgRx or state management, if you have some common data which you are going to use over multiple components, so that common data you will store into your store. Let's say you are going to create an employee, and whatever the employee data you get from that, you won't be storing that into store, correct? Let's say you are in the employee page and you have created the employee, and in the API response you get the created employee data that you are not going to store, or employee list also you are not going to store in the store. But drop down kind of data, logged in user data. Let's say currently I have created an task where in my application user will log in, okay, but that user will have multiple roles. So in the nav bar we will have a drop down of roles. Whatever the maximum roles he has, he can change to that also. User is logged in, okay, but that user will have multiple role, and in the nav bar we can change that role also. If I change admin role, I can see the admin role. If I change the guest mode, I will see some of the things only, right? So that current role, what is the current role user has selected, that also I will store it over there. Logged in user data, because everywhere I'm going to need that data in all the components. So that kind of data you will store in your store in state management, not the regular data, just the data which you are going to need in all the components. Clear?
Sir, I have a question.
Hmm.
if suppose we have called the API, how the store know is there the data any update?
Yeah, for that we need to write the logic. Na? Let's say
Okay.
user component is there. Here you will make the API call. Okay. And before you will check the store, like store has the data or not. Or whatever the existing data is there. And you know, like user API call is there. You are going to get the updated data, recent data. You can directly store it. Na? Doesn't matter if that store has it or not. Okay.
Okay.
So let's just
But
wait
the thing
for.
is, when let's suppose at the first we have store API data, and then other data at the come that time I can.
Yeah, so for that only. Again, I so initially I told you, right? The just the basic example I have created. Now I will do with the API integration. Once I'm clear, then again we will have one session. We will try to do the same thing with API also.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So Cheta, whatever we are updating, we just put it in store. The updated
yeah.
value is 50% in store. Then
Updated
only we
value.
do.
Yes.
Okay.
See, even though if you are preparing for the interview, even though if you have this knowledge, now this is also enough, because everyone knows also. Because even though in project NgRx will be there, but it will be used only in the starting. If it is product based now, if your application is product, then they will force you to store everything in the store only. But if it is service based now, no one care in the initial state, because it is written in the contract that you have to follow the architecture and whatever. They will start it with the NgRx, but once the initial days are gone, they won't use the store that much. Because that's why in the interview also they are just checking, like, are you aware about the store or not, because client might be asking that question. Okay.
Which scenario we need to go to store related?
Repeated data, let's say drop down master kind of data you are going to use over all the pages. So no need to call that API call again and again. Na? So that kind of data you will store it into store. Logged in user data, you can store it. Got it?
We can use subject, right?
Yeah, so I said, now whatever you can do with NgRx, that same thing you can do with subject also. Behavior subject, not the subject. Right?
Oh, yeah.
But
Yes, sir. There is one same with the NGXS. So is that same with NGRX or is that
NG
different? NGX.
NGX. I'm not sure NGX. I am
Yeah, NgXS. NgXS, I think.
what is it? NG
XS.
S. Okay, same like that is state managed pattern library for Angular at access single source of truth. I'm not aware about this. It will be same like that, but I have
Okay.
used component store as well. One more is there, component store. So this is like a mini version of NgRx. Okay, see, it's the library NgRx only, but it's a component. It will. It's not overall the application. It will be component specific. How do I explain this? Let me open Paint. It's a small version of store. Okay. The actual store will be application on overall application. But let's say you have a detail page. Okay. You have a detail page. Inside that detail page, you have multiple tabs. This is one tab, second tab, third tab, fourth tab. And if you click on this tab, again, some child tab is opening over here. With each tab selected over here from the top, you get some different tabs over here. And actual data, once you select it over any tab from over here, then that component will load over here. So this is altogether one detail page. And you are going to need so much of data in this particular detail component only. Okay, so this, let's say, consider this is your detail component. Okay, so let's say now you want to implement a store which is dedicated for this detail component only. Whatever the components are going to be child of this detail component, you need to have a dedicated store for this. Then you can go for the component store. Same kind of code structure is there, but it's very little. You don't have action and reducer, but store will be there. Okay, it's a child of NgRx component store. When you have to create a store for some particular component, and in that component you are going to render so many components, and you want to have something available across the component you are going to use in that detail component. So then you can go for the component store. That is again part of the NgRx only. But this NgX access, I'm not aware. Okay. See, Redux is also same, because in React I know very well. Okay. Same thing is there in Redux also. We have action reducer, store, everything. We don't have selector over there, but action reducer is there also, because it's the state management. Previously, the state management actually came from the React. They now this NgRx and every in Angular they started using it, right? So in whether it is NgRx or whether it is Redux, basic terms are same. So I must be sure like here also basic terms will be same only. Okay. Fine.
Chetan, we can able to see that the store is happening and also in network tab, right? I saw some black.
Yeah, we have to install that extension.
Relax something. We
Yeah.
have to install that.
So we will get it over here and we can see like what data we have in the store. In Redux also we have that. In NgRx also we have that. In the documentations somewhere they might have provided how to. Somewhere it is there. I will try to get that. Okay, we have to implement so many 5 to 6 packages are there. This is just for the basic implementation. So you just need one library, that is NgRx store. But if you have to see that store in a global over here also, so you need to install that extension. So you can see your what kind of data you have in the store. Okay.
Okay.
Fine.
Like this NGR store, maybe they will use like banking application. They will mostly
No,
use.
it's not. It's not only banking. Every application will have some redundant data which you are
Mhm.
going to use in all the components. So you can use store in that way. Okay.
Repeated data to avoid, we can use store. That's it.
Right. Why to make the unnecessary API call? Na? Because that data is not going to change over multiple time. But storing that data into service or local storage or session storage is not safe. So store is the right, or as a good architecture pattern, good architectural way, we should store the data in NgRx only. Because behavior subject and subject must have some validation. That's why NgRx is trending. So there might be some reason. Fine.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So anyone else has a question? Those who are preparing for the interview, just try to implement it once so that you will at least say something in the interview. Yeah. Doesn't matter, like in every project, you won't have NgRx is used, but you can say like, yeah, on the individual level, I have implemented the store basic things I know. That is also enough in the interview, because the guy also need to have the proper knowledge. Na? So they will just try to check like, are you confident on using NgRx or not? That's it. They will be looking. Okay.
Sir, in a new version, is how we can implement NgRx? Is there any change?
See, I was focusing on this. Like in new architecture, we don't have app mode, right? So where we are going to add this? Because every component is standalone. So in each component, we cannot add this. Otherwise, it will have a multiple copies, right? But NGRX has released 18 versions, so they might have done something with this. I will try, because in app config we have provider, so same thing will goes in the provider also. Okay, new structure. But I was just not sure about this, so I will just try to create one more with new architecture, and I will try to implement. If it is same, then same code will work. Only this is the thing. There might be something different. Otherwise, remaining code is same. Whatever the code we have written, it will be same. It doesn't have to do anything with the new or the old architecture, or even in the previous Angular version also. This code will be same. Fine.
Yes, okay.
Any repo available for this code?
Yeah, repo, I will push it.
Sir,
Video
can
we
you
will.
make a session on micro front end, because like
Yeah.
interviewers
Micro
are
front end,
asking about.
I have done the implementation, but just let me create proper steps and everything, then I will explain.
Also, sir, Angular Universal, like how it works, that is also.
Universal, we need APIs that will get that kind of data. Fine now. Universal, I will also try. But that is not, see, universal we use when we have to deal with, when we are creating website using Angular, right? Then only universal will be used, na?
Yes. For customer side application.
Yeah, means website kind of data where we can
Yes,
load
yes.
our page quickly with predefined static with
Yes.
static page, and after that sometime our API call will progress. Once we get the data,
Correct.
then that content will be replaced by the actual data, like that, no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I will try. See, in the Angular, NgRx and micro frontend, or you can say universal. Universal is not that much important because very less applications are there. But NgRx and micro frontend, these are the two hard or where interviewer will try to down your moral, right? So just two topics are there. Even my also was the I didn't had the opportunity to work on NgRx and micro frontend. Micro frontend, our applications are with micro frontend, but initial implementation must be done by someone else. So we won't be sure like how it is working, because once the setup is done, na, whatever the code you do, it doesn't have to do anything with the micro frontend. Regular code will be there. Just the setup is that micro frontend, right? So those who might have done the setup, they only will be aware about like what they have actually done. If we are working, we won't get the time to explore that also, like how they have done it. Fine, I will try to do the micro frontend session very quick. Fine. Anyone else has any question? Although we can close.
Sir, hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yep.
So can we have one session like how agile method works in MNC companies?
Yeah, it's very normal. But what you are expecting? Like how
Like
you are working or not?
actually I'm working, but we have not agile method.
Okay, okay.
Like, that's why.
So how we normally work, you have to know that, right?
Yes. Yes.
Fine. I will try to plan a session like how or many others can contribute also that, like how they work in their project. So you will have an idea.
Right.
Fine. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, yeah, so one question I have. So what do you use your facade service in NGRX?
Facade. Why do we use facade pattern over here?
Yeah, actually while we are using effect now
Hmm?
API, then
Okay,
we have
effect,
to use.
effect. Effect, I have also not explored. I have not explored that effect again. Like
Okay.
once we change the value of the state, then we can write something on that, right? Just like that effect.
Yeah, so a state of the API like failure, success, and something like
No, I have
three
also not
state.
explored that. I will explore that.
Okay, okay. Thank you, sir.
Sir, dynamic components means it will created on runtime or like same as a module?
No, dynamic components as in, let's say this user component is there. So we can create an instance of this user component from .ts. Where it is our app component. So over here, we will create the instance of user component, and in in app component, we will have container direct. See, this is directly loading, correct? By using that selector.
Yes.
But in dynamic component, we will have ng container with ng template outlet rep something. Where it is that?
Sir, this comes under content projection kind of, right? Reusable
Yeah, content
components.
reusable component.
I mean, dynamic is different, no, sir? I mean, both
no,
are same.
dynamic is same. See, content projection is like this is static, correct?
Yes.
But what if based on condition you need to either load user component or admin component? How you will do it? Or let's say you have so many components, but based on some condition you need to render it. You cannot have a ng for 15 component over here. So
Yes.
that code, the instance of the component, you will create it over here by using the dynamic. I'm not remembering that. We create an instance of by using one service is there by which we can create an instance of component into .ts. Then that instance we provide into this ng container. Then that component will load over here.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
While
sir.
creating Angular element, I have created it so many days back. So in that, I try to explore that.
Yeah, basically for the reusable components, we use
Right.
input decorator kind of thing, and we'll do the HTML part, right?
Correct. If you explore, if you try to see the Angular element, like how do we create Angular element? Inside that, you will be able to create the dynamic component instance.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Fine. Thank you all for joining. I will share the recording on Monday or Tuesday. Fine. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.